Welcome to our 8th Showcase Tuesday, covering peacebuilding and conflict prevention, one of Rotary's 7 areas of focus. Rotary supports training, education, and practices for peace and conflict resolution through initiatives that help transform conflict in our communities and around the world. Tonight, we will record this session. Please mute yourself during the presentations. You may unmute yourself and ask questions after each speaker presents. If you don't want to be heard, please enter your questions in the chat box. Marlene Heller of our Learning Committee will pose the questions from the chat box to our speakers. A couple questions. Did you ever notice that Rotary builds peace and addresses conflict through partnerships with others, such as the Rotary Foundation, the Institute for Economics and Peace, the Peace Corps, the Cadre for Peacebuilding and Conflict Prevention, and of course, the United Nations? Did you ever notice that we can build peace through services that help integrate vulnerable populations into society? Did you ever notice that we can build peace by creating dialogues about how to best manage natural resources? Did you ever notice that Rotary offers scholarships for individuals to attend peace centers to train those students to work in peace building and conflict management? Tonight, we will hear about peace building and conflict resolution through the peace centers and the Institute for Economics and Peace. It's my pleasure to introduce our speakers tonight. Our first speaker is Marty P Kellman. Marty's an incoming trustee for the foundation for the years 2022 through 26. Marty and her husband, Frank, joined the Booth Bay Harbor Rotary Club in 2003. And in 1213, she served as governor of District 7780, which is Southern Maine and coastal New Hampshire. She frequently speaks on the Rotary Peace Centers, the Rotary Foundation, and growth topics. Marty serves as president of the Otto and Fran Walter Foundation. She currently serves on the site selection work group for Rotary's newest Peace Center. Our second presentation speaker, who's coming to us through a telephone and not through Zoom, is Charles Allen. Charlie became part of the Rotary family in 2010 as a Rotary Peace Fellow at the Rotary Peace Center, Chulalongkorn University, Thailand. He's a president nominee of the Rotary Club of Sydney. He's a Paul Harris Fellow, a coordinator for the Peace and Conflict Prevention Technical Cadre, and a member of the Peace Major Gifts Initiative. He is the Director of Partnerships with the Institute of Economics and Peace, which tonight we'll call IEP, and he directly manages the Rotary IEP Strategic Partnership. He activates IEP's Positive Peace Framework globally through positive peace workshops, strategic engagement with state and business entities, presentations, partnerships with universities, and IEP's online learning platform. Some of you may have taken his Peace Academy course. Let's begin with Marty.
Thank you very much, Bob. Let me bring this up. Can you all see that? I'm getting some nods. Great. Okay. Yep. Okay. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm delighted to be here with Charlie from Half a World Away and a Peace Fellow who I met very briefly when I was in Australia a few years ago. If I can get this thing to move forward, we'll be all set. In thinking about this presentation, just a year ago, the Rotary Foundation announced a $15.5 million gift to create a new peace center in the Middle East, North Africa region. So what I'd like to do tonight is talk about how we got to that point, what happens next, and use that as a springboard to talk about the peace centers more generally. And also at the end, I want to introduce you to some Rotary Peace Fellows. You'll also see them if you find your eyes wandering, you'll find some of their stories on my slides. So let's get going. To do this, I have to talk about my day job as president of the Otto and Fran Walter Foundation. Otto Walter was born in Germany. He was entered in the bar just in time to be disbarred by the Nazis that passed laws in the early 30s saying that Jews could not have professional, could not be members of the profession. Some other nastiness happened, and so Otto got the word, and he and his immediate family left Germany, and they arrived in New York City in 1936 with no visible means of support. His law degree from Germany was also no good in the US. Law degrees are only good in the jurisdiction in which they are earned. He knew 4 languages, none of which was English. Of course, it was the middle of the Great Depression, 25% unemployment, animus against both Jews and immigrants, but he worked hard. And in 15 or so years, he had saved enough money to go back to law school in this country, which he did at night. And when he graduated, he started his own law firm. By the early 80s, 3 things happened, which are part of the story. First is that he joined the New York City Rotary Club. The second is that he started the Otto and Fran Walter Foundation more or less as a rich man's philanthropic pocketbook. And the third is that his law firm had the good sense and intelligence to hire my husband, Frank, as a newly minted law associate. Fast forward another decade or so, and it was clear that Otto was grooming my husband, Frank, to take over the Walter Foundation. And that indeed happened in 2003 when Otto and Fran died at ripe ages. And because of Otto's interest in peace and the fact that he was a Rotarian, we quickly turned some of the proceeds of the Walter Foundation over to the peace centers. Now, to bring you up to date on the peace centers, today, this year, they're a 20-year-old program. We have more than 1,500 alumni at work around the world in 115 countries, and we're growing at about 130 professionals annually who receive fully funded fellowships at one of 7 peace centers around the globe. You've probably seen this map or a version of it. It shows where the current peace centers are located around the world. The one in North America is a joint operation of Duke and University of North Carolina. Typically, when this map is shown, there's an awful lot of emphasis on those that are shown in gold because that offers the master's degree. And there's reason for that interest in the master's. It's a 2-year, fully funded, about $150,000 fellowship. It's indeed worth noting, but I would like to call your attention to the schools that are listed here in purple. Chulalongkorn University, which is the one that our second speaker, Charlie, went to, and also Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda. From the beginning, Chulalongkorn was available for a graduate level professional certificate program. This was open for students who were not interested in a master's. Maybe they already had one, maybe they were mid-careerists and they didn't want to give up to 2 years. But as I say, most of the attention really went to the masters until about 5 years ago when the trustees of the Rotary Foundation organized a blue ribbon review of the program. And one of the key findings, was that Rotary gets a better return on investment from the graduate certificate program than it does for the masters. And the reason for that is quite simple and obvious if you think about it. Less time in class means less tuition, means less investment per student. And because these tend to be mid-careerists, there is a shorter return, the shorter time before the investment is returned. So a growth plan was developed and signed off on by the trustees to establish 3 more regional graduate certificate programs, one each in Sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East, North Africa region, and the last one to be in Latin America. Now, and indeed that has happened, and Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda came online. The first class matriculated just a year ago in the middle of the pandemic. It was helped by the fact that an awful lot of the work would have been independent study anyway. It's a 1-year program. It's changed since Charlie took it. It's now a 1-year program with 10 or actually 11 weeks on site. And there's they call it a social change initiative. There's an independent study so that students can do an awful lot of the work at home working on a change initiative. And of the first class, 70% of them were from Africa and 30% were from the rest of the world, but had shown experience in doing peace work in Africa. And I'll be quite honest with you, I didn't really think very much about the fact that the new school was regional. If I thought anything, I thought that Rotary was getting smart and not spending money on United Airlines. That was until I was on a meeting such as this, a Zoom meeting in June 2020, about 3 months into the pandemic. And Yinka Babalola, at that time, Rotary International Vice President and a Rotarian from Nigeria, he was the speaker. And when I asked the question, the answer he gave was that Makerere marks the first time in history that an institution in Africa has been designed to train Africans to find African solutions to African problems. Blew me away. I talk about post-colonialism. It really, really excited me. And it got me thinking about the Walter Foundation and what Otto Walter's real needs were and real interests were. And I started talking to people, starting, of course, with the board of the Otto and Fran Walter Foundation, but then on to Rotarians whose opinions I trust and so forth. And there's no way the Walter Foundation could afford a peace center. So what we are doing is arranging for the gift of over $15 million. And when that happens, the Walter Foundation will sunset itself. We will go away, and Otto and Fran Walter's heritage will be the new Peace Center. It turns out, I didn't know this at the time, it was a benchmark gift in two different ways. First, it's the second largest gift in Rotary Foundation history, second largest by several decimal points, of course, compared with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but second largest nonetheless. And it's the first time the Rotary Foundation has named a program after the donor. After all, it is not the Bill Gates immunization program. That was key to us because this will be Otto's legacy. It's his money. And I'm happy to tell you that the trustees agreed, and they had no argument with that. So this will be the Otto and Fran Walter Rotary Peace Center. And soon after the gift was announced, a committee, it's not a committee, it's a work group. Only in Rotary is there a difference between a committee and a work group. So we have a site selection work group. And we came up with some site selection criteria, none of which will surprise you. Obviously, we're talking about a very volatile region, so a safe and secure study environment, a country which has Rotary clubs. The key one is probably accessible to all international students, both in policy and in practice in terms of visa. And of course, we'll be partnering with a university that has some experience in doing this. Now, I didn't count, but some very good Rotary staff in Evanston is backing us up, and they tell me that we researched 30 schools in 11 countries. We're down to 3, and the RFPs actually came in last week. Site visits, unfortunately, because of Omicron, we've had to postpone until the fall semester. But even so, assuming everything works out well, the first student should matriculate in the spring semester of 2025, which is very exciting. Now, let me use that story to talk to you a little bit more generally about the two programs. As I already said, master's degree is 2-year and the graduate certificate is 1 year, most of which is independent study. Both have an independent study. With the master's degree, it's called an applied field experience. With the graduate certificate, it's called a social change initiative. I want you to both require English as a second language if it's not the student's first language, because of the fact that the coursework is done in English. I want you to notice the number of qualified applicants that has essentially doubled in the last half dozen years. And of that number, about 2/3 are interested in the master's program and 1/3 are in the certificate program. Yes, your club can nominate a student. And in fact, Allentown West did so successfully last year. And you have a student who will be entering the master's program in Brisbane, University of Brisbane in Australia next year. So you know that there's no cost, not in cash, not in DDF, no cost to the club or the district. The funding comes out of a separate endowment at the Rotary Foundation. I have had the responsibility of chairing that committee, and Charlie is on that committee as well. I point out to you there are no geographic requirements. So I understand your successful applicant came from the Pennsylvania area, But you could also nominate a student who you met in wherever, somewhere halfway across the world on a Rotary trip or otherwise. So it's very possible to find a student anywhere in the world and have them take this wonderful experience. No cost to the student or to the club, but of course the cost has to come somewhere. And as I said, there's a committee set up to help raise funds. We're now at around $185 million, and the budget to run the centers is around $5 million a year. Where do Peace Fellows work? Well, again, I don't think there's a surprise that a quarter of them work for NGOs. And if you go around this pie chart, again, there probably aren't any other surprises, but I will tell you at about the 10 o'clock position, the number that I'm most proud of on this pie chart is the fact that 5% are in law enforcement and military. And what this really means is that about 10 years before somebody coined the phrase Black Lives Matter, Rotary was putting its money where its mouth was and was working on this particular issue. So I promised to introduce you to a few students, excuse me. And I'd like to start with Kevin Melton, who was really the Peace Fellow that started me on my Peace Fellow journey. I heard him speak at a Rotary event in Boston in 2011. At that time, he was on home leave from a USAID job in Afghanistan, where he had been teaching former child soldiers vocational training. And so he's working with these damaged youth. And he said, it's one thing to teach a former child soldier that he shouldn't use an AK-47 to solve his problems. But, Kevin said, if that child is hungry and if all he has is an AK-47, that is what he was going to use. And it hit me more than if I'd read half a dozen monographs on the subject, that of course we want our leaders to attend peace conferences and sign pacts and so forth. But if people on the ground aren't feeling relatively secure, and if they aren't relatively well fed, and if they don't think that their children have a relatively better life, then all of the peace agreements in the world aren't going to do a bit of difference. And so the hard work of peacemaking has to take place person to person, one-on-one, the hard way. And Kevin is doing that. I'd like you to meet Dr. Dilshad Othman. Dr. Dilshad is a doctor. He's a medical doctor. And I met him when he was presenting his master's thesis at the University of North Carolina. His topic for his master's thesis had to do with how you keep patients and medical personnel alive after the accident and before you get them to the hospital. Now, this was a time when Iraq was having roadside bombings, and the bad guys would wait 20, 30 minutes after the bombing, and all the first responders would rush in, and then there'd be a second bombing. So anyway, with a topic like that, I went up to speak with Dr. Dilshad afterwards, and I said something about his scholarship, and he pounced on me, and he said, it's not a scholarship, it's a fellowship. Well, I'm the person for whom English is supposed to be a first language, and I always thought the words were interchangeable. And so anyway, I said to him, okay, what's the difference? And to Dr. Dilshad, the difference was that a scholarship is transactional. I give you money, you go to school, done and done. But a fellowship is a relationship. And his point was that he is so beholden to Rotary for giving him the opportunity to go to school and study peace and conflict resolution that he will try, but he will never repay the debt. Well, now he's currently doing medevac work in South Sudan, so I think he is repaying the debt. But I also think that it's a good thing to remember. I'm often asked what percentage of Peace Fellows become Rotarians, and the current number is around 7%. Now, all of us on this call prefer it to be 70% or some such number. But I think we need to realize that it's probably a flawed statistic, because there is a club in South Sudan, but I have no idea if it's available at a time when a guy is doing medevac work. And until Rotary becomes a little bit more flexible in its meeting plans and so forth, I don't think that we can expect Peace Fellows to necessarily join Rotary, but what we do want them to be is committed to Rotary. And I've never met a Peace Fellow who is not. So I think in that sense, we're at 100%. This is a sad story. I'd like you to meet Mahmud Rahimi. I met him when he was at Chulalongkorn University in 2016. At that time, when he went to Chula, he was a high school level English teacher. He parlayed his work at Chula and some other things into a job teaching English at the university level. I exchanged emails with him just a year ago, and he had just accepted a new job teaching English and empowerment, as he described it, at the University of Nuristan. That was in February of 2021, and then along came August. And his wife is out of the country. She was in Pakistan when Afghanistan fell, and so she's out of the country. But Mahmud and his brother are currently in hiding, and it's a reminder that peace work can be very dangerous. And in fact, one of the changes in the program in the last few years is to add a module for both the master's and the professional certificate program to help students self-identify PTSD and also to let them know what to do about it. So let me end on a slightly happier note, and that's Anne Reichert. She currently resides in Berlin, although she's originally from Denmark, and she's a human resources executive. Now, Germany, as you know, has had many refugees, as had our country. In the case of Germany, they're from Syria, and there's been a lot of the same issues that they are not taking jobs from Germans and so on. So Anne, being a human resources executive, went to her corporate clients, and she asked them if there were particular jobs that they were having trouble filling. And they named some very esoteric, high-tech sort of jobs. And she said the magic words, "Will you train?" And she started this school, the Ready School, in which Syrian refugees, many of whom are young men from the cities and knowledgeable about high tech and the internet, in which she gets them trained for these jobs. It's a win-win. Her clients get good employees who are delighted to have the jobs, and of course they're being paid very well. And the kicker to this is when you ask Anne why she does this work, she explains that her great-grandparents fled Germany in the 30s and were refugees in Denmark. And from her perspective, what she's doing is repaying it. So there you have it. And it brought you back around to World War II issues and refugees. And I'd be delighted to answer any questions that may have come up.
Thank you. Do any of our participants have a question? Richard, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yes, I'm just wondering if you made it, it's hard to say make it a stipulation, but make it clear for students of the Peace Centers that they be or that they join Rotary post graduation. I've heard it from other Peace alumni that this is not really stressed enough.
Well, I don't know if it's stressed or not. We can ask Charlie. I'm not sure that there'd be a gain in forcing people to join a membership organization. They either want to, or they don't.
You can't force, but
yeah. And I will say this: that Rotary learned its lesson with the ambassadorial program, where it was not stressed, and where we lost touch with a lot of former ambassadorial students. They have not made this mistake with the Peace Fellows. There's a staff person in Evanston whose job is to track them. There are many opportunities for them to work with Rotary, and I think it's taken care of without. I think the lessons of the past have been learned by Rotary. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Please.
Marty, I understand that it's not permitted for someone who is already a Rotary member to apply. Is that correct?
That's right. Interactors, Rotaractors, youth exchangers, and so forth are all welcome and urged to apply. Do you know the reason why Rotarians cannot apply?
Why?
And for that matter, cannot take part in any other Rotary Foundation program? Okay, it's because it turns out the Rotary Foundation does indeed report to a higher authority. That higher authority is the IRS. And the concern has to do with a nonprofit and being seen as feathering our own nests. And the Green Eye Shades in Evanston, the lawyers in Evanston have worked that out to say that Rotarians and direct descendants of Rotarians, so a Rotary daughter or a child or grandchild, cannot take advantage of a $150,000 scholarship. And I'm not a lawyer. I'm married to one, but I'm not a lawyer. But I will say that, to my knowledge, the Rotary Foundation has never had any problems. So the interdict clearly works. Now, in terms of the professional certificate development program, Rotary has accepted students who are Rotarians for that program. What they do is they ask the student to pay their own way, and this gets around the issue. So the Rotarian is not put first. The Rotarian is not put last. The Rotarian is thrown in there in the mix, and if they're in the top, percentage and are accepted, then they're asked to pay their own way. And I spoke to a Rotarian from Toronto who had gone to the Chulalongkorn program, and I said, "Oh dear, it must have been expensive." And she said, "Oh no." She said it was $7,000 or $8,000, which is not a drop in the bucket, but it's for the experience. She was happy to pay it. She said the real cost of Chula, and we can ask Charlie this, she said it's the time away from work. It used to be 3 months. Now it's 10 weeks away from work. So it's the fact that maybe you take time off from your work, that's fine, but you're not getting paid. But somebody's got to pay the mortgage, right? So her perspective was that she was doing, that it was well worth it for her, and it was not a problem.
Thank you.
We do have a question from the chat. The question is, will this change for Rotaractors when their status changes in July?
I don't know. I'm sure there are people in Evanston working on that issue. And whatever the decision is, it'll be for all foundation programs. There's a reason, by the way, why Youth Exchange is not a foundation program. And we just nailed the reason. Because, Rotarian children and grandchildren are frequently youth exchangers. And they couldn't be if it was a youth exchange program. If it was a foundation program. But that's why it's paid for by the district, and that's why it's not a foundation program. So good question, and I don't know the answer to that.
Anybody else have a question for Marty? Marlene, do we have some more that we thought they'd want to ask?
I don't think so. I think everything else was answered.
I have one. How does Rotary determine the locations of peace centers?
Oh, Lordy. Well, since I'm in the middle of that right now, the attempt was made in the beginning to spread them around the world. It's an English-centric sort of experience, because the reality is that, by the way, I am not a college professor. I'm not a lawyer. This is not my area of expertise. But an awful lot of grad work around the world is done in English. So even in the programs in Japan and in Sweden, the English requirement remains. The original, the master's level programs, it was a matter of finding schools that offer different kinds of programs, but all in the area of peace, international development. So, for example, Duke has a program in public health, which is quite popular, and that's where you go if that's what you're interested in. In terms of the professional certificate program, I'm not sure how Chulalongkorn got chosen originally, although I will point out that there was a Rotary International president from Thailand at the same time that the selection was made. But in terms of both the school in Kampala, Uganda, and the current one, it really is a matter of finding a school which has an international reputation and has experience in doing this kind of grad level work. And I would also say that all the schools who are selected are on there. Yes, there are lists of these things, on the list of the top 1,000 universities in the world based on graduates and teacher ratio and that sort of thing. So it's a combination of trying to look for diversity and trying to look for quality and looking for eager partners. There have been a couple of schools that have dropped out of the program. There was one briefly in France, there was one in Buenos Aires, and also UCal Berkeley was in it. And the three were shut down for various reasons, and I wasn't in the room. But I think generally speaking, we can say it had to do with the universities forgetting that Rotary was paying the bills and therefore was, yes, it's a partnership, but Rotary has to be kept happy.
Marty, we have one more question. I think Richard Denton has one for you.
Thank you very much, Marty. Again, excellent presentation.
Thank you.
You just touched on the topic. What is the curriculum of the Peace Centers? How broad and in range is the curriculum? Does it talk about war? Does it talk about nuclear wars? It's
different in each of the school depending on what their options, on what their existing areas are. But it has to do with international development. It has to do with what it is that we can do to make peace. And when Charlie presents in just a minute, when he talks about positive peace, he's going to show you a positive peace indicator with 8 general areas of what it takes to create peace around the globe. And when you look at that, that's really the best way. It's those sorts of things which are covered in the peace programs.
And one more. How does one go about nominating someone for a Peace Fellowship?
All of the information is on Rotary.org, and your district has a member of your district foundation committee who is the Peace Subcommittee chair. Am I right, Bob?
Yeah, we're about to mention his name too.
Okay, so speak with that person, and he knows all. And if he doesn't, there are folks in Evanston who can back him up, or call me. And his name, Bob, is?
His name is Bill Hunter.
He's your guy.
Okay. And we just received from RI the entire Peace Scholarship platform in an email so that we can get that out to you folks. So Marty, I want to thank you for all those invaluable insights into Peace Centers. I've learned a lot, and I believe that our Rotarians have. Hopefully we'll support Peace Scholarships, not as much as the Franinato Water Foundation did, but hopefully we'll also nominate candidates to our respective district scholarship chairs. And as I said, Bill is the chair for District 7430, and he's the one who worked with Nick Millward, our current Peace Scholar. So let's try something different here. Let's try to bring in a man from Sydney, Australia, over my phone, and our learning committee member, Lou Batita, will share screen. So let's welcome Charlie Allen, who will tell us about positive peace. Charlie, your PowerPoint is on the screen. Can you begin talking?
Thank you, Rob. Yes, I can begin talking, and good evening, everybody. And thank you for inviting me to this session. Sorry I'm not joining you via Zoom, but we had some technical glitches. We'll make this work. And what I'd really like to achieve this evening is probably 3 objectives: to build your understanding of positive peace, and also to highlight why Rotary has this strategic partnership with my organisation, the Institute for Economics of Peace. And thirdly, a call to action, if you like. What is it you can do as a Rotarian? And thank you to Marty too. She's a great segue. She mentioned that I'm a Rotary Peace Fellow, and she also mentioned a couple of interesting statistics. I was a Peace Fellow at Chulalongkorn in 2010. At that point, I was in law enforcement, so I fell into that 5% of law enforcement folk that Marty mentioned. And also, sometime after my fellowship, I became a Rotarian. So I fall into that 7% that Marty mentioned. But she also said that all Peace Fellows are beholden to Rotary. So I like to say I joined the Rotary family back in 2010 when I became a Peace Fellow. and later become a Rotarian. So, advance. So the Institute for Economics and Peace, my organisation, or the organisation I work for, we're really in the business of measuring peace. Not only measuring peace, but also building an understanding of the economic benefit of peace, and also the inverse of that, if you like, or the economic impact of violence. Advance. So really, our role is to build understanding of peace, to create measures of peace, and it really comes back to that adage of you can't manage what you don't measure. So prior to the Institute for Economics and Peace measuring peace, there were no global measures for peace. Why do we do this work? It's really simple. So peace builders, people who are working in development, people working in social change have macro level data they can use to influence policy and resourcing decisions. Advance. You'll see that the Institute, and you may know some of our Institute research products, particularly if you've done the online academy, but the Global Peace Index has been in existence for some 15 years now and has become the global measure for measuring peace. Other key products are the Global Terrorism Index and the Ecological Threat Register. You can see them in this slide. There's a range of other products. These three are all macro level, but we also develop research products that take that research approach and bring it down to subnational level. Advance. Institute for Economics and Peace is located a number of different points around the globe. We're headquartered here in Sydney, in Australia. All of our research comes out of here. We have an office in Harare, office in Mexico City, New York, The Hague, and Brussels. So I mentioned the Global Peace Index before. Advance, please. And the Global Peace Index is as I said, the recognised measure for peacefulness globally. And if you take that data and put it into a mud map of the world, this is what the globe looks like. And I should say that all of our research and this map are freely available on our website, Vision of Humanity. This map is actually interactive and you can get a deeper understanding of countries' positions in the Global Peace Index. But you see the deeper red colours are the least peaceful countries, and the greener colours being the more peaceful countries. So I'm sure your eyes are zooming in onto North America to get a sense of the colours there. But I'll pose a question to you. What do you think is the most peaceful country in the globe? I was going to get people to throw it into the chat. You can still do that, throw it in, and maybe Rob can call out some of the guesses that are coming through. I'd be really interested to see what your thoughts are on the most peaceful countries on the globe.
Well, Charlie, I can tell you that Richard Denton believes that Iceland is the most peaceful country.
Well, Richard wins the prize because Iceland is the most peaceful country. And the prize is a lifetime subscription to IEP research, and the consolation prize is also a lifetime subscription to IEP research. So it's freely available, as I said, to everybody. So well done, Richard.
Well, Richard,
I hope that you've done
Charlie, you should know that Richard has to share those prizes with Kathleen Dick, who also guessed Iceland.
Oh, great. Can I have the next slide? Advance, please. And here's the top 10 countries on the globe. And you can see them there, Iceland, New Zealand, Denmark. I won't read them out, you can see them. Clearly, there's a large representation for European countries. And it's interesting that the most peaceful countries tend to be smaller island countries that seem to have colder climates. And they're not some of the measures, but that's interesting what bubbles to the top. And also an observation is most, but not all, are functional democracies. Okay, least peaceful country. And I'll call some guesses once again into the chat. I'm sure people will get this very easily. Rob, what are you saying?
Well, I'm waiting for someone to put in a least peaceful country. Badar says, way to go, Canada, but he's just cheering for his Canada. He didn't put in the least peaceful country. Won't someone put in an unpeaceful country? Oh, come on. Well, no one's. Oh, here's one. Here's one. Janet Culp has guessed Afghanistan.
Spot on, Janet. She wins the prize also. You can advance the slide. And here's the top least peaceful countries, the 10 top least peaceful countries, with Afghanistan, unsurprisingly, being the least peaceful. What you see there when you look at those countries, there's an overrepresentation of MENA countries and sub-Saharan African countries, and of course Afghanistan in South Asia. Okay, so that's just a really quick glimpse at some of the data that is available in the Global Peace Index. You can look at a particular country, you can look at a region, you can look at trends over the 15 years of the Global Peace Index, and then also start to break it down into domains and get a deeper understanding of what's happening at a macro level within a country or within a region. So advance. Where I wanted to get to was to talk about positive peace. Advance again. And if you're going to measure something, you really need to start with a definition. The Institute for Economics and Peace uses two definitions. First of all, there's that negative definition, being the absence of violence or the absence of fear of violence. And that is the definition we use to build the Global Peace Index. The more interesting definition is that positive definition, being the attitudes, institutions, and structures that create and sustain peaceful societies. And we use that to build the positive peace report, which I'm going to speak more about. A way to think about this, if you think of negative peace, the absence of violence or absence of fear of violence, it's actually really about counting the broken bits in a country positioned as peacefulness. Whereas that positive peace definition, attitudes, institutions, and structures, is really talking about the bits that are working well within the country to create and sustain peace. So advance. And here's what our research has revealed around positive peace. We looked at some 20,000 different data sets, and we were able to identify what were the indicators that correlated most closely in the most peaceful countries. And we're able to build this eight-pillar taxonomy, which we call the positive peace framework. Marty mentioned this before. This framework is used across the Rotary Peace Centres. I'll actually be on my feet at Makerere University in Kampala in a few weeks' time, taking the participants through this positive peace framework. So it's really helpful that Rotarians have an understanding of this positive peace framework and understand this can be applied at the local level. Certainly, IEP's research is macro-level research, but this application of the positive peace framework is equally applicable at local level. It could be down to community, could be even within a family system, and equally applicable at macro level. And what do we know about positive peace? So if these 8 pillars are functioning well together as a system, and I stress that word because they function together as a system, we know that high levels of positive peace have these outcomes. Higher positive peace countries have higher per capita income, are more resilient to shocks, be them endogenous or exogenous, so they have better environmental outcomes, higher measures of well-being across a range of indicators, and higher positive peace countries are also performing better against the SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, advance. Now, I'm not going to dive too deep into positive peace data, but I just wanted to share this one data slide with you because I think it is very important. What you can see here is the global trend in positive peace over the last decade. And I should say that you can see lines going down, the lines going up. IEP graphs are counterintuitive. The smaller the number, the more peaceful the country, the higher the number, the less peaceful the country. But this slide is breaking down the domains, those domains that I mentioned, the attitudes, institutions, structures that create sustained peace. You can see the blue line is the actual measure of positive peace, which has improved over the last decade. You can see that improvement has been driven by substantial improvement in structures over the past decade and a somewhat improvement in the institutions over the past decade. But what is alarming and concerning is the decline, the decrease, the trend in the decrease of attitudes over the last decade. So it probably comes as no surprises as global watchers, but what this data does is really brings that to light. So next slide. So I just thought I'd throw in also a regional slide. What this slide is looking at is the percentage change in the regional averages of positive peace, and it's broken down into regions. And this is really confronting because what you can see, all of the regions of the globe have improved, albeit MENA's improvement is very slight. All the regions have improved in positive peace except for North America, which has had a significant deterioration in positive peace over the past decade. And referring back to the slide I mentioned before, largely driven by the decline in attitudes. Just sitting for a minute to let that percolate because it's fairly powerful data. Okay, advance. And now I want to touch quickly on the Rotary Iep Partnership. So Rotary has a strategic partnership with the Institute for Economics and Peace, and it really is centred about that positive peace framework because the positive peace framework creates, first of all, it creates a taxonomy that makes peace understandable, but also makes it actionable for Rotarians at the local level or community level, where we do most of our work as Rotarians. Sorry, Rob?
No, let me, excuse me, let me remind everyone, if you could please mute yourselves while Charlie's speaking. Go ahead, Charlie.
Great, thank you. And you can see here that what Rotary have done has implanted those 8 levels, or 8 pillars of positive peace in amongst the Rotary areas of focus. So really, if we're working within the Rotary's 7 areas of focus, we're actually working on positive peace. Because if you think about it, regardless of which area of focus we're working, that is going to have an impact on that social system, have an impact on those 8 pillars. So, and you can see some dot points there on why the relationship exists. It brings to light a system that we can anchor work on peace building at the local level. And certainly Rotary are interested in building the capacity within Rotarians and the broader Rotary constituents, if you like, on peace and development. Okay, advance. So here are some real things that are happening as a result of that partnership. We're coming to the end of our second MOU. In fact, I just had a meeting this morning with Rotary talking about our third MOU. We developed a Rotary Positive Peace Academy. I'm aware that some of you have taken that academy. It's up to around, this is a bit dated now, it's up around 10,000 Rotarians have taken that Positive Peace Academy. I really encourage you to take that because it's really helpful in building an understanding of peace and how to activate positive peace. We have the Rotary Positive Peace Activator Program, training cohorts of facilitators to work within Rotary globally, and also Rotarians are signing on to our IEP Ambassador Program. They're our largest growing cohort in the IEP Ambassador Program. And you can see there we've got numbers of 3,000 over some 106 countries. Advance. Rotary, in partnership with IEP, have engaged in positive peace workshops globally, so real work into communities. We have changed the narrative around peace within Rotary, and you can see that positive peace is very much within the nomenclature, if you like, of Rotary. You'll hear the Rotary International President and other Rotarians talking about positive peace, and we become very involved across the whole range of Rotary advanced. So, but the rubber hitting the road is really the important part. And this is just a real quick example of some work that we have done. I'm talking about IEP, working in partnership with Rotary. This was a global grant-funded positive peace workshop, or series of workshops that occurred in Colombia. You can see there we trained up a large number of young peace builders across 5 regions in Colombia. That's had a direct impact across some 3,000 Colombians. Those workshop participants, advanced, have gone on and taken that learning and applied it within their communities. And here's just a flavour of what some of those projects out into the community have looked like. I can see there's some capacity building there, some pathways to employment for young people, arts-focused projects, and there's a sports inclusion example as well. So finally, the call to action, advance please. The call to action for Rotarians, as I've already mentioned, I really encourage you to take the online Rotary Positive Peace Academy. It's available online. It's a free offering. It's quite engaging with the content being quite active. And we encourage you, if you're interested, to diving deeper into Institute for Economics and Peace, into our research, to join the Ambassador program that's become increasingly popular with Rotarians. And we also encourage you to think about positive peace workshops as a way that you, as a Rotary Club or as a Rotarian, can bring a peace project either to your community or to a community that you're working with, whether that's internationally or nationally. Okay, I'll finish there and leave a bit of time for some questions, and stop sharing the slide pack, and I'll hand back to Rob.
Thank you, Charlie. Luke, could you stop sharing the, what we're going to do is try to get our participants in here. Does anyone have a question of Charles Allen? We have a great opportunity to talk to him about positive peace. And Chuck Watson from 7505 has a question.
Charlie, what a great presentation. Thank you very much. My question has to do with the Ambassador program. Tell us more about it, what it does, and how we might join it.
Thank you, Chuck. Thanks for the question. So the Ambassador program, as I said, we've trained some 3,000 people, had some 3,000 ambassadors in 106 countries. About 30% of those ambassadors are Rotary Peace Fellows, and at the moment about 10% are Rotarians. So it's people who are interested in IEP's research and how to activate with that research, so how to make it real within their communities. So we dive deeper into IEP research. We have it gives the ambassadors opportunity to question the researchers and deepen their understanding of the research, but also deepen their understanding of peace. So really shift them from that esoteric understanding of peace to having a real understanding of peace, but then most importantly, giving them tools to be able to take that learning and activate that learning within their communities. And our positive peace ambassadors, we've just actually finished reviewing the last cohort of ambassadors, reviewing their projects. There's a great one by a Rotarian in Philippines who saw that and she focused on that free flow of information pillar and saw that the difficulties with internet in her community was an issue. So her project was to access internet amplifiers, I think is the right word, and to build on that free flow of information pillar within her community. So just a quick example of a positive peace project undertaken by a Rotarian within their community as a result of the Ambassador Program. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Marlene, do you have a couple of questions?
Yeah. First question. Why do you think the Peace Index for North America has taken such a nosedive? It has deteriorated recently.
Yes. So thank you for the question. So the data I shared with you, that was from the Positive Peace Report. So that was looking at North America from its level of positive peacefulness. You would have seen from the Global Peace Index data that Canada is tracking fairly well on the Global Peace Index and is tracking fairly well on the Positive Peace Report. What I'm saying is that the United States is what is driving that decline in positive peacefulness within North America, and that breakdown of the domains demonstrates that it's attitudes, declining attitudes that have impacted on peacefulness or positive peacefulness in the United States. So we can point to a range of indicators, and I encourage you to either go to the reports or our website. You can dive deeper into those indicators that are having an impact on attitudes in the United States. Now, there have been, and there's a whole range of contemporary issues that you can point to that are impacting there. There's the Black Lives Matter campaign. The civil unrest across US with based on political difference, but also based on concerns around COVID responses. So you can point to a range of indicators that are having an impact on that attitudes domain. Thank you for the question. I'm conscious I really only touched on that briefly, and I encourage you to go to the reports and the website to dive deeper into that question.
Okay, one more question. What are the ecological threats to positive peace?
So I certainly, in one of the slides demonstrated that one of the reports we produce is the ecological threat register. So in that report, what we did was look at 7 threats that are facing. I broke that down into, it's actually down to administrative level, but you can look at it at a country level. But what we know is that in countries in either their preparedness, their response, or their recovery from threats or shocks is contingent on their level of positive peace. So what I'm saying is that higher positive peace countries are far more resilient. So the impact of higher levels of positive peace means that countries are more resilient to ecological threats. I hope that answers your question, but certainly the ecological threat register focuses on just this issue. So countries that have higher levels of positive peace are more resilient, they're better prepared, better able to respond, and better able to recover from the impact of shocks. Thank you for the question once again.
So would you say that in the United States, where we're facing wildfires on one side and floods and tornadoes and hurricanes, those are our ecological threats, and what you're saying is that our response to them is the sum of our ecological threat, or our resilience to that, the way we respond?
Yes. We're focusing on the United States and that declining attitudes, but and also the United States is not positioned well on the Global Peace Index. But from a positive peace perspective, the United States is a high peace country when you look at positive peace. So what I'm saying there is United States is a resilient country and well placed to respond to ecological threats.
We're a mixed bag.
Yeah, I'm very conscious I'm talking about macro level data. And it may be of interest if you want to break this down further, that we have, albeit it's a little bit dated now, but we did a subnational index, and I can't remember the year it was, might have been 2013, 2014, on the United States, which drives this same methodology down to subnational level, and we brought it down to metropolitan statistical area. So that's much more meaningful data to pick up on your point that you're a mixed bag. To be able to look at the differences at subnational level, and Mexico has grabbed hold of this. We produce a annual Mexico Peace Index, and Mexico now use that annual Peace Index to benchmark province to province or state to state, and that Mexico Peace Index is used to inform policy and resourcing decisions.
Very interesting.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Charlie. Listen, many of the participants tonight have had a chance to go on to the Peace Academy. And for those who didn't get the link, I'd be glad to share it with them and other materials from the IEP. You've done a great job. Charlie, I have to congratulate you. You're coming to these people through my cell phone on WhatsApp, and I think we all got what you were saying. So you did a great job. Inspirational insights into positive peace. Thank you very much. Oh, and also the ambassadorial program. People are clapping for you, Charlie.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, everybody. And I apologise for not being visible on Zoom. I'm not sure what happened there.
Well, maybe some more of our Rotarians will enroll in your Peace Academy and take the course and get a certificate like I did. It was a great learning experience. And let's all work at peace building and conflict resolution. I want to invite those of us on this show tonight for the next Showcase Tuesday on March 8th. The March Rotary theme, water, sanitation, and hygiene. Our speakers will be directors of the Water, Sanitation, and Hygiene Rotary Action Group, Neil Van Dyne and Mary Beth Groney-Celine. Please have a good night, and remember this Showcase Tuesday has been recorded and will be available later. Thank you for your participation.